talk a little bit about y'all boy Hotep Handles? Can we talk about him? Because, I said,
the best description I heard, and I saw on Twitter, and I put that in the chat, and it cracked me up. Kyrie thinks he's MLK on the Lincoln Memorial, and instead he's Kanye with a layup package. I'm like, yo, that shit was hilarious.
I moved
too
on.
Bad people aren't that funny in real life.
Oh no, it's true.
I moved on from World Be Flat. Now I call him Hotep Handles. Okay, this is where we at right now. Hotep Handles. Do we think he's coming back at all? And Jarod, because I'm glad you brought up the point about the deadline for the Nets, because I think that's a fantastic point. If you want this to not become a season-long media narrative, questions, this is not going to stop. Do the Nets have shown guts to send him away from the team? So I should take that logic and say they will also have the guts and the fortitude to say, all right, you got to have a deadline. Or do we think it doesn't happen, and by some miraculous nature, Kyrie announces maybe tonight in the last 3 minutes of the game, he comes on IG Live and he's like, hey guys, I'm back.
Listen, this is all about Kevin Durant and James Harden's appetite for this. If they cool with continue to answer questions about this all season, it'll remain. If they get to the point where they're like, I don't want to do this anymore, and they go to Josiah and Sean Marks and like, look, just fix this shit, then they're going to fix it, right? Look, I'm sure Sean Marks is like, I'd love to move this dude. But they know they got to get the sign-off from Kevin. And I think them getting the sign-off from Kevin to be like, nah, it's cool. You can sit up, don't let him play anything against if he's only halfway. That's a big first step. And I think the longer it drags out, I think they're much more willing to be like, you know what? Let's just move on from this.
Of course. I agree with that. I think maybe I wouldn't be surprised if they've already, if KD and Harden have already given the okay to Sean Marks. And I was of course, Kevin Durant got asked about that pregame before the game tonight, and I wasn't really paying attention. My wife comes up, she's like, "Hey, he just talked about Kyrie in the past tense, so like he was, he was this, or we were good when we, back when we had Kyrie or whatever." So, I think mentally they're already moving on, and I think he'd have to come back pretty soon, like within the first month of the season. I think you go a month later, then you're forgotten, man, and they don't want to have anything to do with
I think that's an excellent point, Murph. That calendar switches to 2022. I'm like, yo, later for this guy, man.
I think that's why I said the January 1st date. But to Murph's point, Murph,
Greg.
Murph, you're kind of hitting on something even better on this, that we could be talking about December, and dudes are like, nah, like you can't come back up in here in December and be like, let's go. We've already played 15 games, and now you want to come and be part of this team. I think a lot of these guys are going to look another way. We forget what the team feels about him and the value he can get. It's the locker room dynamics that matter a ton here, right? And dudes want to know, all of us who've played sports, guys are looking at people like, are you all in or not? It's the same thing with Simmons that we're talking about. I mean, he's shown another way that he's clearly not all in. But Kyrie, if you want to be all in, you got to get this jab. And then even if he comes back, sorry to cut you off, Murph, even if he does come back, I feel like he has some explaining to do to the teammates, right? Like he's got to at least say, yo, this is why I didn't get you got to explain why you weren't here for 4 or 5 weeks. You got to explain why you missed if it's one game. Even if Kyrie announces tonight, right, guys, that he's coming back, you have to explain to these dudes why you weren't all in.
Right.
Now it ain't gonna be hard as John Gruden might have had to explain something to his team, but it's gonna be hard. Like he's gonna be tough, and he's gonna have to explain some things. And I think Murphy hitting the nail on the head. That cannot be ignored.
Also, remember, he could come back in a month. Like I don't think he will, but hypothetically, he come back in a month. It's not over, right? Because he could come back in a month. He's still Kyrie. You can't trust him. He could come back in a month, and then 2 weeks later, he need time off. You know what I'm saying? Or he got a birthday party he got to go to. Or you know what I'm saying? Like this is just an example of like how far he could take it. We already know what he's capable of. He could do this again, or something else is going to happen regardless.
Do you think, to that point, because I think that's another great point, I mean, can we just bank on this now as the Hotep Handles experience? Is this just what it is? Like, if you're all in terms of the organization standpoint, are you all in on the Hotep Handles experience and whatever comes in? Because Murph brings up a good point. Anything can happen. Don't think because he gets the jab, it's gonna be like, yo, we good. He might
This
still be on some bullshit.
is to Brian's point where he always says, and I think when Brian says it, I'm always like, Brian, I don't, make sure you're like giving him his proper credit. But Brian's right in the sense that he's a good player, but is he worth all the extra shit you get with it? And clearly, that answer looks like it's got to be no, right? Like, come on, man. To Murph's point, yeah, he gets the shot, whatever. A month in, now I got to take 2 weeks off and go to the Sioux Standing Rock Reservation because whatever the hell's happening. And it's like, dog, like, yo, like you've been off for 2 months and you want to take another 2 weeks off? Like, that's problematic, man. It is.
He's used up all his Kyrie-ness. You know what I'm saying? Like he can't. If he came back, he would have to be perfect, and he's not even capable of that. You know what I'm saying? And then imagine you think about KD and Harden. Look at me. I'm like mad frustrated. This dude's got me mad frustrated. I ain't got nothing to do with the Nets. I ain't playing. It ain't affecting me really. You know what I'm saying? Imagine deep down how KD and Harden really feel, man. They gotta be like, yo. And it's like anything else. Like you with a girl and she cheated on the man before you. You like, oh, that's not me. So it doesn't really. You don't even care. But then when she does it to you, it's a whole different story. So they could have looked at, oh, he's a nut. He was a nut in Boston. He was bugging with LeBron in Cleveland, but whatever. He didn't never do nothing to me. Now he has. You know what I'm saying? So it has to change your attitude.
I love that analogy, right? Because when you're the team, the organization coming in, you're like, oh, we got this. Brian, this. What were people talking about when you were covering the Nets? That Nets culture. That Nets culture will cure it all. Because look at the thing. Nobody's saying that now. It's almost like Nets culture is like we're defeated. We ain't got nothing for Hotep Handles. We got nothing for him right now. We're done. We're done. And Kyrie's sitting there like, yeah, that's the power of them Ankh earrings, yo.
The Ankh earrings.
Look,
can't mess with me on those.
I don't have much to add because I've talked about this more than I care to already, and y'all know where I stand on this. And if I'm the Nets, I'm trying to rid myself of the situation, as I said earlier, and just trying to move them and get whatever I can, and just move on and just be with Kevin Durant and James Harden.
What would you want to pick up if you were the Nets? I feel like another wing, if you can. Not like obviously you're not going to get an all-star wing, but another wing player, I think, is what I want.
I mean, that would require more of a breakdown of like, all right, numbers and shit like that, but like, because it doesn't matter at that point, right? Like where you send him, because I legitimately do think he's going to retire either at the end of this year or the end of next year, whatever. That's something Dex knows. I've been saying this for at least 3 years. Like he's been a prime candidate for early retirement. Because it just seems like he wants to do all these other things, some of which seem cool, and some of which, I don't really know about that. So yeah, I do think that it doesn't quite matter like where, but I would look at like, can you get Buddy Hield in something, right? Like,
I'll take it.
Can you get like
Buddy Hield's a good name.
Can you get Buddy Hield in something? Shit, can you get Karis LeVert back? Like like Buddy Hield is somebody I think about because he's making 20-ish million, and he was in those rumors before with the Lakers and the Kings and so on and so forth. And I think with Buddy Hield, like that would make a lot of sense to your point, Jarod, in terms of getting a shooter. And it's like, if you're the Kings, like, can the Nets just like give you? Because I think at this point, if you're going to trade Kyrie, you might have to attach a pick. No, like what team? Because people are throwing this out today. People are throwing this out today, like, yo, Kyrie for Ben Simmons, do it now. And I'm like, yo, why does that make sense for Philly? If I'm Joel Embiid and I want to win, why the fuck do I want to play with Kyrie Irving right now if he's not going to play?
It ain't helping.
I mean, just to push back a little bit on that, I mean, a couple things you play with Kyrie. I'm not saying it's the best trade, but he'll shoot, right?
No. I'm talking locker room dynamics. If I'm Joel Embiid, I have to go from dealing with Ben Simmons to dealing with that dude. Like, come on, yo. Then Joel Embiid is going to start having mental health problems, and I need this dude to be up if he's going to carry my franchise. If he's going to carry my franchise to sort of make it through, like stylistically, if Kyrie's focused, like sure, like yeah, you could see the fit with Kyrie and Joel Embiid, and it's kind of like what we were talking about, a supersized version of what CJ McCollum would provide if they were to do that trade, but I think CJ McCollum is a lot more focused